Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to Geek News Marathon Night, where we take a bunch of episodes, we analyze them each, and then we give our thoughts and our opinions and whatnot, and all of that fun stuff. I am your host, Adam Mickelson, aka Drek. I hope everybody's having an awesome day or night when you're listening to this. And joining me is my usual companion for such marathon adventures, Andrea. Andrea, how does it feel to be back to a bunch of episodes as opposed to one?
It's fun.
So, for those who are brand spanking new to this, we've only done Geek News Marathon Night for 2 series, but you can check them out. Here's the difference between a streaming night or an anime night. Where an anime night will take a season of like 12 or so episodes, which is kind of what the new season format is, and we would go over them episode by episode. But if people remember, way back in the 90s, we didn't have 12 episode seasons, especially for some anime, which was still considered to be kid shows. So in those cases, we have 50 episodes. And yeah, I'm not going to make you guys sit through 50 separate episodes while we try and make this work. So that being said, we introduce Marathon Night, and we just basically tackle enough episodes to be able to make this down to like a 10, 11 episode version of the podcast. And in this case, for Beyblade Season 1, we are going to be doing 4 episodes each up until the end. Then we might have to change things up a little bit. But if you guys want a feel of how these are going to be different, you guys can check out the G Gundam podcast that we did, where we did 5 episodes at a time, and then Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, where we did, I think, 5, right?
Something like that.
Yeah. So you guys can check that out, or you can check out our summarized versions of Fruits Basket Season 1 and 2, and then you can check out the episode by episode we did of Fruits Basket Season 3. But there you go, quick explanation. And so for all of the people who are going to put in the comments, wait, you missed this tiny little detail. If we didn't notice it, it probably wasn't sticking out to us. All right. So if you have a problem with that, I'm sorry, but that's the way it goes. And especially with plots like this, where, you know, it's Beyblade. This isn't a rocket science plot. Mm-hmm. Is it safe to say, Andrea, it's not a rocket science plot?
Nope.
So that being said, let's dive right into this. And yes, we are here to let it rip in Beyblade Season 1, or aptly known as just Beyblade. And for all the people who want to scream at us going, Beyblade, really? Here's the funny thing, Andrea. A lot of people don't know this, but like during the 90s, early 2000s domination of Pokemon and later Digimon, a lot of people forget that there was a bunch of other clones that came out around that time. And the funniest thing is, some of them actually had a great deal of potential, but because they weren't Pokemon or Digimon, they were thrown by the wayside. They had to mimic their success. And that was the thing, is like you basically had to capitalize on this. And Beyblade was in a unique place where not only did it, have to deal with the Pokemon and Digimon flair kind of going out, but then you had the hype of Yu-Gi-Oh! Coming in. So at that point, it especially didn't get noticed, especially since it's, for lack of a better term, guys, it's battling tops, all right? This is stuff that was cool in the 1920s. But no, it's Japan. They're going to try and make it cool, right? Because you got to sell toys. But that's the thing, is like some of these actually had quite a bit of passion to them and got shit down the wayside, for lack of a better term. So we're gonna highlight some of these because some of them were actually pretty freaking cool, right? Mm-hmm. And Beyblade is one of those that is cool, but also very silly. And also, obviously, Andrea recommended it because it's been how long since you watched this?
No, it's been a long time.
Have you watched any of the new ones?
No, but I want to at some point.
So, well, maybe we'll have to do that if people enjoy this. So let's dive into this with episode 1, The Blade Raider. So, as we go along, I'll introduce characters and we can go over our thoughts on them and everything like that. But let's start things off with our main character, whose Japanese name is Takao Kinomiya, but he is known as Tyson Granger in English dub, and that's what we're watching this in. And man, that dub. Oh, that dub is gold, as far as I'm concerned. So, for those who want just basically kind of a general feel of Tyson, he is your anime protagonist. He is always looking for a challenge. He is always looking to be the best, like no one ever was. And in this case, it is in the underground Beyblade circuit. So at that point, but the cool part also is that he is part of a very traditional Japanese family, even though they really try to make it sound like it's an American one. And one of the ways we know this is because his grandfather actually pushes fencing onto him. So like he's got like an old school dojo in his house, and he needs to learn how to do basic fencing for katanas and whatnot. So yeah, totally American, let me tell you.
Is that really what it is, fencing?
That's what they call it, but it's basically, so when we think of fencing, we think of like rapiers and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
Well, this is Japanese fencing.
Oh, okay.
So at that point, it's with it's honorable combat with a katana.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of thing. So basically, I'm using fencing, but I'm using it in the Japanese kind of sense.
Yeah, but I never thought it was called like fencing like that.
I mean, there's other words for it, but I'm not thinking of them off the top of my head. So at that point, it's martial arts. There you go. It's martial arts. So initially, there's not really a whole lot to Tyson aside from he is very passionate about Beyblades, and he wants to be the best like no one ever was, right? Like, is there anything I'm leaving out? And what are your thoughts on Tyson as a shonen, because this is a shonen style anime. Thoughts on Tyson as a shonen protagonist?
Well, he kind of balances out, like he's like not too like he's very ambitious, but yet sometimes he's kind
of a blockhead.
Kind of like,
yep. So Domon Kashu, basically.
Pretty much.
He's Goku. I mean, I hate to say it, guys. He's basically Goku. I hate to say it, but like aside from some other protagonists that I could probably name, he doesn't really stand out. But the series is centered around him, and the whole premise is we want to see him become the best. So nothing bad against Tyson. It's just that's Tyson.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll actually, never mind. I'll get into that in a minute. But so Tyson is training with his grandpa, and by the way, the MVP of the series is Tyson's grandpa, because the dub in this is absolutely amazing. So much so that I am going to have the Shadow Blazer look up the details of this dubbing studio. Because holy crap, he is every 90s and early 2000s schism all in one, and he is totally in a midlife crisis, right? Because, I mean, he goes from going, hey, capiche, you gotta pay attention, Tyson, and he's like, yo, dog, you get back over here so we can fence some more. It's like, okay, calm down, Grandpa. We'll get there.
He's got multiple personalities.
He does a little bit. Part of him is in the 90s, maybe part of him's in the 80s, and then another part of him is in the 2000s. So, like, all of the cool eras of anime, right? So, yeah, they're doing fencing, and unfortunately, Tyson's just not into it today. Why? Because he's promised that he's going to meet some people to do some Beyblade battling. And so he very quickly tries to get out of his training and goes and, well, whips the crap out of the people who are waiting for him. But the reality is like, it's supposed to be a fun exchange, right? Except to the fact that he forgets that he was supposed to meet somebody else entirely to go challenge them to a Beyblade battle named Andrew. And it turns out while they were waiting for him, a guy by the name of Carlos comes in and challenges Andrew. And by the way, Andrew's face, good lord. Like, some characters in anime just, like, stand out to me, and it's primarily because either their buck teeth are way down there, or their cheeks are just really, or their lips. In this case, Andrew, his lips are just, wow, they are there. I thought Angelina Jolie would eat me. No, Andrew will eat me in my sleep. So at that point, Andrew gets challenged by Carlos, and it turns out that Carlos beats the crap out of him, and it turns out he's like the equivalent of a card shark, roughly. So he basically destroys Andrew and then takes his Beyblade, his top, and just puts it into this duffel bag he's carrying around, which is all of his trophies, so to speak. And so Tyson, being the shonen protagonist that he is, he challenges Carlos, and if he wins, then he gets to challenge, then he gets to get Andrew's Beyblade back, as well as all the others.
Well, yeah, he has to return them all.
Except it's not going to be that day. Like, he gets till, what was it, the next day after school? I love it. All of them are supposed to kind of look like adults, but they're all supposed to be 10-year-old kids. Makes you wonder where their dads are. So, this is when we also get introduced to another main character, Kenny, aka the Chief. He is basically the Izzy of this team, except Izzy does get involved because he had a chosen Digimon. Kenny is not really involved. He's kind of the analysis kid.
He's like the sidekick.
And we also get to meet his bit beast. This is going to be so hard for me to say, Dizzy. Which I always thought, like, when I watched this show when it was like on Jetix and ABC Family, I thought it was always like an AI that Kenny had created. No, turns out it's a bit beast that accidentally went into his laptop instead of his top.
I cannot.
Can somebody explain that? Just say it was him who created Dizzy, or Dizzy was preloaded into the laptop for him.
I cannot remember for the life of me if Dizzy
that is such a weird explanation. But basically, this introduces Dizzy, who's an AI interface who they utilize to be able to help Tyson to improve his Beyblade. Or Kenny will also utilize this too to improve his. And I'm guessing it'll also be when eventually a team comes together for this. And so we meet Kenny. There's not a whole lot to Kenny. He's very Izzy. You know, he's very shut in. He doesn't really talk too much, but he's willing to help when it comes to Beyblades. And so they work the better part of the day to try and improve Tyson's Beyblade so that he can stand up to Carlos's, which apparently has the advantage because it's heavier than other tops. I love it. They tried to add science to it. Comes to the time, and they actually do challenge Carlos, and they do beat Carlos. And when Carlos is supposed to hold up his end of the bargain, of course he tries to run off. And it turns out that Carlos is actually part of a Beyblade gang. Jiminy Christmas, man. They just needed motorcycle colors and everything. And the leader of this gang, the Blade Sharks, although at some points they'll call them the Bay Sharks, I don't know why. We meet the leader of the Blade Sharks and his boss, Kai. And Kai is for lack of a better term, he's the rival. He's the stereotypical rival of an anime, right? He is meant to be, and in this case, he's very much like the Seto Kaiba kind of rival, where power is everything and nobody is on his level, etc. You know, the whole speech, right? You've heard this before.
Yeah.
Gary used to be this in Pokemon, and then eventually they stopped doing this until I think it was Hoenn, when we got a new kind of bastard character that kind of took in the reins for that. But he's the stereotypical rival. So if Tyson is Goku, Kai is Vegeta. Ultimately is what it is. And your thoughts on Kai, aside from he is way too young to have pecs like that.
Well,
He'd be making some other teenage kids jealous, is what I'm saying.
well, I think he was a pretty cool rival-like character.
I love the fact that he apparently went to elementary school with all that ninja gear on. I'm sure, like, did the teachers even question it at that point? Because, again, this is a Japanese society. They all have to go to school. They all have to go to school in uniform, even though they try to showcase that, no, they're very much like U.S. kids. And this kid is walking around in ninja gear and tattoo, like, not tattoos, but like face paint and all that. He didn't piss off any of his teachers, really. So Kai comes in and promptly thrashes the hell out of Carlos for doing what he did, to which at that point he goes too far, and Tyson then challenges him to a fight, or to a Beyblade battle, and he is properly destroyed by Kai. And it's only because his Beyblade is so balanced that it could literally take the strength from Tyson's and use it against him. We're starting to see some similarities between other shows here.
Oh, yes.
And that's how the first episode ends, is that he promptly beats the crap out of Tyson, and it's like, oh no! as if we're setting up a basic struggle here. So, the Blade Raider. What did this episode do right first? Set up stakes. It's not brilliant in the way that it did it, but it set up, this is the lead protagonist, this is the villain that we need to be paying attention to, this is the code of ethics of our hero, etc.
It's just basically you're introducing
the characters in his life, and including the great grandpa. Like he is gonna be the thing I love most about these 50
the
episodes.
mentor sort of thing. No.
Oh man, I will put in as many grandpa quotes as I possibly can when doing the opening quotes for these episodes, because I love the guy. He is such a whack job. I love it. Yeah, I at this point I can't really say it did anything tremendous out of it. It set up the stakes, is what it did. It says that Tyson wants to be the best like no one ever was, and here's his opposition, and here's who he has to be as good as. So then we can go into episode 2, The Day of the Dragoon. And so I skipped over this prologue in the first episode, but it's more relevant here. Apparently, in these tops can exist what are called bit beasts. What's a bit beast, you might ask? Basically, it's an animal spirit living within the top.
You don't know
don't know how it works.
It just
but it's there. Kind of thing. And enough so that, and it's supposed to be a rare quality of tops, the only person so far that we've ever met that has a bit beast in his top is Kai. And that is his bit beast Dronzer. Now, like I said, we know about Dizzy, because we find out actually in this episode that Dizzy is a bit beast that was supposed to go into Kenny's top and didn't. Instead went into his laptop. I try and make that make sense. But here's why it's important. Because it turns out that a bit beast is kind of the family crest for Tyson's family. As in the dojo, there is this really old-looking sword, and I think the grandpa even calls it the Blade of the Dragoon. And so at that point, it is the icon of this family and what you need to live up to. And now, after being beaten by Kai, Tyson is starting to have visions and whatnot in the dojo of the sword basically reaching out to him and a giant dragon coming out trying to eat him, etc. And this is basically all setting up that, oh no, he's about to get his own bit beast. What do you have to say about that? I was almost convinced that since his Beyblade was so broken, that the sword was going to turn into a Beyblade. And that was going to be his Dragoon Beyblade. That's not what happens, but was I the only one that thought that was going to happen?
Either that, or I thought maybe it was going to fix the Beyblade.
Yeah, like overnight, the magic of the Dragoon would fix it, and then all of a sudden, oh, what's this new thing on it? Which would have said that the Dragoon is now in it. So, Jiminy. So basically, after getting trounced by Kai, Andrew, Kenny, and Tyson all go back to square one, and they start rebuilding Tyson's Beyblade and working on its power and working with Dizzy to figure out how to make his Beyblade as strong as Kai's. And they don't get anywhere near, but they work their butts off as hard as they possibly can. And in the meantime, we are also introduced to the Blade Sharks, which are Kai's Beyblade gang.
Which are weird.
Because some of them look like they should be in underground street fighting circuits. I'm just saying. And it turns out that Carlos, since he lost, he then gets hazed, or rather beat the crap out of. And when I say this, I don't mean him. His top gets beaten the crap out of by the other three members. And Carlos will... It's almost like the Telltale game thing came up in the corner of the screen. Carlos will remember this. So we have all of that happen, and ultimately Tyson, in order to beat Kai, beseeches the Dragoon for guidance and asks for help, and this is when the final vision happens, and the dragon goes into his Beyblade, and now the imprint of the Dragoon, which was on the sword, is like, you could see the imprint of where it was, but it's not there anymore. And instead, it is in the top. Sorry, there's only so many times I can say Beyblade.
Well, you wonder if Grandpa will find out it's missing.
I don't, like, in the episodes that come later, I don't think he noticed. Because, like, the only thing that Grandpa seems to notice is after losing to Kai is Tyson starts to get really into his training, because he feels like that can help him to be able to beat Kai, especially since he's trying to figure out a way to make his Beyblade 4 times faster, because that's the only way he would be able to beat Kai, because that's how fast his Dronzer is going.
Mm-hmm.
And the episode basically ends with him re-challenging Kai, but they don't really, that's kind of where it ends for it. So actually, we completely forgot to do this. So for the Blade Raiders, out of 5, what would you give? And was there anything negative that the Blade Raiders did? Not really.
No.
3 out of 5. It's right down the middle. It's not impressive by any stretch. So now we're wrapping things up with Day of the Dragoon. What did it do right? What did it do wrong? It's right down the middle for me. It's basically setting things up. So 3 out of 5. I have no problem saying. And for those who think that we're skimming, no, we're really not. Not a whole lot happens. This is setting things up, people.
I still find it funny when they're trying to figure how to fix Tyson's Beyblade. They're all sitting on the slide.
Oh, when they all listen to Dizzy's analysis. Mm-hmm. So basically, Kenny is at the end, and then everybody else is behind him on the slide. I don't know how they thought that was going to work, but all right, good on you. And I still think that gravity did not go into effect, because as soon as Tyson got off the slide, everybody after him should have fell.
Everyone should have slid and
should have slid right into Kenny. And that's not what happens, but okay. So. And
you just gotta love it when Tyson's trying to find every means of being able to make his tops spin.
Oh
faster.
Yeah, he goes to so first of all, he extends the wind-up cord of his top, and so that's supposed to give him some speed. But then he also feels like, and actually, no, now that I remember, him and Kai did have their rematch in this one, and he has to have that running head start to get his Beyblade as fast as Dronzer, and I think it still ends up in a draw.
I don't remember him doing well, maybe he did. I know, like, he did it for Carlos, like, he had to do his whole running start.
So he did the running start for Carlos, and then he did the running start for Kai.
Okay.
And Kai, I think that ended in a draw, didn't it?
Yeah, because, actually, wasn't that when his Bit Beast
I want to say the Bit Beast happened later, because wasn't that in the hideout?
One of them did.
Anyway, yeah, so they have a rematch, and yeah, their Bit Beasts actually do come out. So we have this ginormous phoenix fighting off against a dragon.
But that was like the first time that, because he didn't
Oh, yeah, that's right, because the rematch was that, yeah.
Yeah, because, like, the first time he fought, that his blade got destroyed, but the second time their Bit Beasts come to life or something.
Yeah, and they fight.
And then they end up went into a draw.
Something like that, yeah. Because, actually, now that I remember, so Tyson tried to push him out of the arena, and he couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so at that point, it was considered a draw, but, I mean, tie goes to the victor, I guess, or tie goes to the champion, I guess. So at that point, we then go into episode 3, Take It to the Max! This introduces a whole new character that we have to keep track of from here on in, I think.
Yeah, because he becomes a part of the team later on.
Yeah, he's a team member. So after their encounter with Kai, they are then testing out the Dragoon Beyblade, and they come across a little girl with a dog who, after a Beyblade fight, catches Dragoon in its mouth. And then, for some reason, the dog ends up in the river, and I don't think that was ever explained, but it ended up in the river. So Tyson and Kenny and Andrew tried to save... No, actually, was Andrew there? I don't think Andrew was there. Tyson and Kenny tried to save the dog.
No, because Andrew wasn't there, but...
Yeah. So they try to save the dog, doesn't really work, and all of a sudden, another top comes out of nowhere, and it's a new kid named Max. Get it? Take it to the max.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out that he's pretty skilled with a Beyblade, too. And now let me just see really quick. Max Mizuhara is his name in Japan, but it's Max Tate in US dub. So at that point, Max introduces himself. They all get buddy-buddy. And it turns out that Max's dad owns a hobby shop where they work on Beyblades. And so he offers, since after trying to save the dog, the Beyblade was... Tyson's Beyblade was kind of damaged. So he offers to take it over to his dad's hobby shop. They fix it. And then he gets to go into the back room to see all of the cool Beyblade tech that Max's dad has in the back, which he totally blows off as like, would you believe it was actually here to begin with? No, I don't believe it was there to begin with. They have theirself another Beyblade battle between Tyson and Max, to which it's a very different kind of animal compared to Kai, who is a much more balanced blade. It turns out that Max's Beyblade is a little bit more defensively driven. So at that point, they don't end in a draw. Max wins, but ultimately since he's new in town and they're willing to be his friends, he's like, I'll totally help you to improve your Beyblade and everything like that. And they actually get introduced to a character that we will see a lot more later on, named Stanley A. Dickinson. He is I think he's the president of the BBA, the Beyblade Battle Association.
Yeah, or is he like the chairman or something?
No, it says here he was the president.
Oh, okay. So
he's basically there to advertise at Max's dad's shop that there is a Beyblade, I don't know what's going on, a Beyblade qualifier tournament that's going to be happening that weekend.
The BB.
Yeah, this is why I'm going to go with tops.
Okay.
So the Beyblade qualifier is going to be happening this weekend, and obviously Tyson, Kenny, and Max are totally on board, and they're going to go train. And that's pretty much, I want to say that's where things end for that episode. Yeah, because then they go off and do their own training and all that. And they also learn from Mr. Dickinson that Kai is actually the defending champion of the Beyblade Battle Association.
Who knew?
Yep. So at that point, now Tyson has a reason to go and face Kai again. So really quick before we wrap up the episode, thoughts on Max. Did typical new kid.
Oh, yeah.
I would almost say he's kind of like the Joey Wheeler of this crew, but the team isn't completely formed yet, so there might be another Joey there. So I don't want to say right off the bat.
Well, I guess we'll find out.
He's the supportive friend, is what he is, and we also kind of get the impression that maybe he's stronger than he's letting on. So at that point, maybe he can also be that rival character, and I think that's how it ends up, where all of the team members are basically rivals for each other. And that's totally fine, because this is a shonen anime. Let's do it. So we have that going on. What did this episode do right? What did it do wrong? Again, right down the middle.
No.
I can't really say it was good or bad.
I mean, it's still, you're still introducing it, and, you're just trying to figure out where you're going with the plot.
And
so
on top of that, like, the previous episode did give us the concept of bit beasts, and the fact that they're rare and that they make Beyblades even more powerful. So they kind of make the hinting that maybe Max also has a bit beast, because his Beyblade is so strong, but we don't see it, so we don't know that for certain. But it basically kind of sets things up. Okay, Tyson can go face Kai again. Now he has somebody who can help him train, along with Kenny. And I actually like that in some of this, like, there is a little bit of jealousy with Kenny, because Kenny doesn't feel like he can do much aside from train, and when Max enters the picture, then he gets jealous.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, but again, it's right down the middle. This is still kind of setting up stakes and everything like that for everybody to get invested in. So 3 out of 5 for me. Wasn't good, wasn't really bad.
Oh, yeah.
Anything like that. For all the people who are like, you guys being so wimpy with your ratings. Just wait. We gotta get 10 episodes in. We're setting up a status quo here, people. And that's what's happening.
You're just getting introduced until you start.
We're establishing characters, we're establishing stakes, we're establishing the world, the love of Beyblades, all of that stuff. So don't worry, we're getting there. So then we get into the last episode that we covered today, which is the qualifier begins. It's the weekend, and everybody has trained their little butts off, including Tyson, who has learned some interesting martial arts trickery from Grandpa. And now he can utilize it with DRAGOON, which is basically kind of a phase step. If anybody's ever seen anime before, it's like, now you see me, now you don't. Bling, 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 bling.
He's like doing a double team.
Think Dragon Ball. They're teleporting, they punch. Teleport, they kick. That's what's happening here. Or what you basically said. Double team, and then you have echoes, or whatever. You have after images. So now he can do that, and the regional qualifier begins.
And he also decides to change up his strategy by turning his top upside down.
Yeah, so now he doesn't do the running start. He flips it, which I don't know how that would give him speed.
I don't know.
All right, go with it, dude. So it turns out that Tyson, Max, and Kenny are all in different groupings. And so all they can do is basically wait until their group comes up and hope that because this is basically just qualifier matches, so those with the highest points get in. Or those who are not eliminated.
Or probably the last standing in their group.
And they end up in the final tournament. And oh look, Tyson's late. Because this is another shonen protagonist trait. They're always late wherever they go.
Did he take that same thing as Ash Ketchum by showing up?
Well, Ash doesn't get that. Because remember, Ash slept in.
Yeah. Tyson
was training. So at that point, he had a decent excuse, and so Kenny couldn't write him off. But it turns out that Max went up first and qualified. So he's going in. We got to see him do his victory stance, but we didn't really get to see his top in action. Then came Tyson, and Tyson was actually put up against all of the other Blade Sharks in his qualifier.
I thought it was Kenny next.
No, Kenny was last.
Oh, okay.
Because Kenny went up against Kai.
Well, but I thought Kenny was in C and Tyson was in D. Because
no, you're right. He was in D, but for some reason he happened next.
Okay.
And yeah, I don't know why. But yeah, he goes up against the other Blade Shark members, and the funniest thing is you remember how I said that Carlos will remember this? Well, it turns out that he's been working on his Beyblade. He promptly turns on all of the Blade Sharks and destroys their tops. And then basically does the speech of like, well, you guys trashed my top, so I'm only in it for myself now. And soon as Tyson hears this, apparently it offended his honor code, and he then kicks the crap out of Carlos and then inspires Carlos to come back stronger than ever. Because this is what shonen protagonists do, people! This is why every single villain that Goku ever faced, aside from maybe a few exceptions, all ended up being his friend! Just saying, people. This is what happens. So I'm pretty sure we'll see Carlos back at some point as a rival. But yeah, so we have that moment. Then we go into Kenny's.
No, I think it's the other way around.
I might be wrong about this, but I could have sworn they ended on Kenny's. And Kenny, turns out his strategy was to put a spring on his top.
I don't know why.
Apparently it was Dizzy's idea.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it did work for him for a while until Kai got into the fray. And then Kai promptly kicks the crap out of Kenny and does the usual power, it's everything kind of speech. No, that's right. It was them. And then Tyson got mad at that, and then he had to go do his qualifier.
Uh-huh.
So basically this sets up that everybody is going to the qualifiers. Max, except for Kenny. Kenny's not going. Max, Kai, and Tyson will all be in there. And then we get a teaser from President Dickinson meeting with another competitor who I don't think we learn his name, but he is basically also going to be going up against Tyson. And in fact, he has been scouting Tyson to be able to see if he can handle him. And all we get from the new competitor is, let me do it my way and we'll be good, kind of thing. This happens in Shonen all the time, guys. So, final thoughts on the qualifier. I actually do like it. I know some people might be mad at the fact that I like the fact that Kenny got eliminated, but Kenny's role is kind of established early on. Like, he's the analysis guy.
Well, yeah, I think he'd be kind of like he'd be a part of the group, but he'd be more like the analysis, strategist.
Yes, and so that's getting kind of established early on. So I'm not too worried about it. Plus, we get Max in there so that if Max and Tyson go up against each other, we'll be able to see what Max is capable of. We have another character that is gunning for Tyson and Tyson gunning for Kai. It's typical Shonen tournament. So at that point, it's all working out. But again, I'm probably not going to give more than like a 3 out of 5. Again, it's setting up status quo.
But I'll give it a 3.5.
Okay, 3.5. Why would you go a little higher?
Just because we're kind of getting now introduced into some of the, setting up for the...
I'm not willing to do that, but that's just because, like, we have to set up a status quo. We have to have a tournament. It's kind of like with Yu-Gi-Oh! Like Duelist Kingdom, yes, it has some good moments, but it also is just basically setting up Yugi as the king of games. And then at that point, now we have a status quo. Now Yugi has a title to live up to. That's what's happening here. And so because my guess is, I haven't seen this in forever, but Tyson's going to win against Kai. And then at that point, he's going to be the guy that everybody looks up to, kind of thing. That's usually how this stuff kind of goes. So 3 out of 5 for me, just because it's still establishing a status quo. And so with that, this is another thing that we actually do with Marathon Nights that we haven't done in a while. Who is the best character that is as far as development is happening in these 4 episodes? And again, since it's setting up a status quo, I'm just going to say Tyson.
Yeah, that's...
because everybody is basically where they're at, but Tyson is the one that basically, he starts off as being super lazy, and now that he has something to aim for, he gets invested in his training and everything like that. So I like that one. Is there a worst character that gets introduced of all of these? Not really. Like maybe Kenny, just for the fact that he tried to get into the qualifier, but that's shaky ground. So at that point, which was the best episode of these? I'm going to go with the Blade Raiders just for the sheer amount of dub gold we got the entire time. If I have to go story-wise, qualifiers. But
I probably
considering that the dub is probably going to be my favorite thing about this whole thing, Blade Raiders. Because Jiminy Christmas, that introduction from Grandpa. Oh.
I'd probably just go with 4. Episode 4 is my favorite.
As the qualifier begins. And there were, again, a lot of these, we normally would do like a worst episode out of the 4, but again, a lot of these are just status quo building, so I don't really think there is a worst of them.
But I guess if I had to pick a worst, I probably would...
Meeting Max, maybe, but...
It's probably the weakest of the
Probably
4.
the weakest of them. So there you go, and that'll do it for this episode. So thank you guys so much for joining us. When we come back, we will join back in with the qualifiers done and into this tournament for the BBA, and we will take on episodes 5 through 8 of Beyblade Season 1. Until then, we better see you next time, dog. Don't you give me that look, dog.
I'm the dog, the big bad dog.